I know.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. My name is Max Perlstein. Thank you once again for joining me. Another fun one today for you. As I mentioned on my blog, I'm going to change the frequency of these podcasts a little bit different with less guests, maybe a little quicker hits. Today, two guests. Very excited to get to both Tim Widner and Dan Shields. Really interesting folks and fun interviews. But before that, this podcast is brought to you by Glass Build America, the show of shows. It is coming up this fall, October 18th to the 20th from Las Vegas, Nevada. Learn more at glassbuild.com. Use the code MAXPOD, MAXPOD, as your free entry to a packed show floor. One of the best show floors I've seen in years, actually. So looking forward to that. That is glassbuild.com. Don't forget, there's the Glazing Executives Forum. That is an additional charge, but definitely a must attend. Connor Lokar, Vic McConnell, really good program there. And the tailgate. Day 3, the 20th, October 20th. Make sure you set your schedule to be at the tailgate. If not, Andrew Herring will probably, chase you down and really get on your case about it. The tailgate party will be well worth it to blow off some steam. It's been a heck of a year, folks. Get to Glassbuild, celebrate at the tailgate party, celebrate a great industry, learn, build a supply chain, everything. Glassbuild.com, use the code MAXPOD, MAXPOD, and join us there. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. We kick it off with Tim Widner of Lippert Components, and Tim is a longtime industry guy, real smart, knows what he's doing. Some great insight. Let's get him going, and then Dan Shields right after. Here we go. Okay, next guest, and I'm really pumped about this because this is somebody I was kind of shocked that he agreed to do the podcast, quite frankly. So Tim Widner, Director of Glass Fabrication and Technical Services at Lippert Components. You can find them online at www.lci1.com. And Tim has been around this industry a long time. It doesn't look it. Looks like, amazing what you're doing to keep looking so young, Tim. But thank you so much for doing the podcast. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, thanks for the invite, I guess. We exchange messages all the time via LinkedIn. And I think it was me that said, hey, why don't you have me on your podcast and we'll shake the world up a little bit.
Yeah. I never thought that again, because you're always on the move, and we're going to talk about your path and everything, but you're always on the move. I never thought that you would do this just because you seem to me as always juggling 1,000 things at once. So I appreciate you carving a little bit of your day into mine. So thank you.
No, it's it's certainly my pleasure. We'll get into it, I'm sure, as we talk, but as I get older, I feel this need to try to give back to this industry that's kind of given me so much over the years. So
I think you do, and we're going to get into that, but I think you do more than you probably think. You do, just giving off from the people you've trained and the people you've worked with, and it's had a massive impact in our industry over the last 30 years, because you and I are basically started around the same time. So, let's talk about that, because you grew up in this business. And so, first and foremost, when you were growing up, I mean, did you want to be in the glass business? I mean, how did you first get into this?
Good question. So, my mother, and
Yes.
She's a longtime PPG employee. She, before she retired from PPG and then started a whole other career with Leon and Arch.
Right.
So she kind of had two retirements, and she was longtime Twinsburg, Twindo architectural metal in Ohio, and I always worked in the summers when I could. I always worked with her. In fact, I was just telling a story about running a Rotolite machine, copying blueprints back in the 80s, working for her. And I didn't ever think I was going to get into it. I don't know how much you know about my past, but I always, as a baseball player, I wanted to be a high school teacher, and I wanted to coach baseball. That's kind of what I thought I was going to do. And I'll actually tell a funny story a little bit later with Arch when that all came to a head. But no, I did not think I was going to get into it. But I'm glad I did. I actually love what I do.
Absolutely. And kudos to your mom, Kathy, who I worked with for many years. Brilliant woman, and her knowledge was incredible. Just a key cog of, me growing up in the industry, just, everything. She knew everything. She, is incredible and was incredible back in those days.
Yeah, she's still her mind's still pretty sharp. I just talked to her last night, and it's funny. I had sent her the Guardian and Vitro price increase letters, and I said, "Hey, Mom, take a look at these." And she responded back like, "OMG! I never thought in my lifetime I would see
Yeah.
something like this." So she was just as appalled as the rest of us.
Yeah, it's still having that effect. It's still having that effect. So now back to you with you became, you obviously, got into the business, and you worked your way up pretty quickly. I think you were in your early 20s when you became a branch manager, plant manager type in the arch company. So
Yeah,
again, quick growth into the business, and how was that? I mean, now looking back at it, I mean, I look back at when I was first a branch manager. I sucked at it. I wasn't ready.
yeah.
How about you, looking back at it in your experience there?
Yeah, so my story at Arch was unique. I originally went to college back in Northeast Ohio, where I'm from, and uh, through a series of events, I ended up transferring to IUPUI, which was in Indianapolis. And at the time, my mom was working for Leon, and she was kind of muting or working remotely back in those days. It was in the early '90s, and she was going to be moving to Indy as well. So it was just kind of convenient that I was going there. And by that time, I'd pretty much given up the dream that I was going to play, minor league baseball or anything like that. So I said, "Hey, I'm gonna find a job for the summer." And she said, "Well, you can come work here. You probably know, enough to be dangerous." So literally, that was a startup plan, as you remember, the old Indianapolis
Mhm.
plant. And I just got in there, and I was so lucky. I got to work with. Well, you remember Dave Casper? He was the
Yep.
original GM there. And then I had Don and Dan Haney as my kind of my mentors. And so I was so lucky looking back on that, because I'm like a bridge from the old school to the new school.
Yeah.
And one day Dan just stopped me and he said, "Hey, I got to talk to you." Okay, what's up? He said, "We're gonna make you the plant manager." And I said, "Dan, wait, no, I'm in college, man. I can't be the plant manager." He said, "Well, plans change."
Yeah.
And basically he convinced me and said, "Look, change your classes, go to night school, and we want you to run the plant." And I said, "Listen, I'm not ready to do that. I'm 20 years old." And he said, "No, it's all right. We'll take care of you. We'll support you. Just get involved in everything, break stuff, fix stuff,
Right.
do whatever. Just learn on your own. We won't get mad at you, just as long as you're trying."
Yeah.
And Don and Dan were awesome back then, and they just kind of turned me loose and said, "Go."
Yeah.
And I got hazed a bit and had to grow up fast, but it was such an education at that time. Imagine being 20 years old and turned loose into a glass factory. So I'm trying to build fish tanks, and I mean,
Yep.
I was trying to do everything. I was building doors and frames and fabricating storefront, running tempering furnace, IG, everything.
Yeah.
I even did some customer service. So it was great. And then when I started winding down, getting done with school, I didn't want to stay in Indy, and I had an opportunity to move to Chicago, and
Right.
that's kind of how I moved on. But I still consider those 4.5 years that I was at Arch, working with Dan and Don, I'm indebted to those guys.
Sure. And the Don you mentioned is Don Power, who's at
Yeah,
Eldora in Louisville, Kentucky these days, and good man. And so it is interesting, because when you're at a startup, you can do that. You can break things and fix things and do that sort of stuff. So it gave you that opportunity. So it's pretty cool. I didn't really realize our paths, because I didn't get to Arch until after you were gone.
yeah,
And so it's pretty interesting, what you had. And so when we started to talk about doing this podcast, you had mentioned your roller coaster of a career, and you have had, you've ridden the ride, my friend. You know,
Yeah.
there's no doubt. So I wanted to ask you, in your times, what do you consider the highest of the high and then the lowest of the low? I'm very curious because you've seen everything.
Yeah, I've seen everything. So, from a business standpoint, look, I could talk about the accidents that I've seen and some of those things that, haunt me,
Hmm.
obviously, all of us to this day. But business wise, definitely the lowest of lows was 2008, 2009. And, the crash. And at the time, I was kind of running the plant for a juggernaut of a window company that we all made bad decisions to transform that business from the residential replacement market that it was to new construction. And then we
Yeah,
all know what happened with new construction, and the fallout from that was just terrible. It was a wrong place at the wrong time type of thing.
no
But
doubt.
that 2008, 2009 was, I'll never forget that. It was
Yeah.
it was absolutely terrible, and I had to recover from that, right? Because I was at the center of all that controversy.
Yes.
um and then the highest of highs, is definitely probably what I'm doing now. Like, I
Yeah.
love what I do now.
Oh, yeah.
Lippert's a great place to work. And I'm kind of, I think people will be surprised how big we are in fabrication, glass and window fabrication.
Yeah.
But there was never an expert, and when I had a chance to meet with Jason and kind of talk about coming to work here, it was just surprising to me that they had gotten so far with so little product knowledge.
Right.
And I was able to step in and fill that void. And it's been tough. It's like turning the Titanic, though. It's a big company, $5 billion company. It's probably $1.5 billion of it is glass related, maybe a little more. And
Yeah.
just a lot of people don't know, because we sell a lot of stuff, axles and uh, electronics and, all sorts of things.
Right.
And glass is kind of not a secondary thought, but kind of a secondary thought. And it's been tough, but it's awesome. I do all sorts of stuff. I have a whole, 10 or 12 page glossary of terms, right? Where
Cool.
it's, I'll start talking and people after the meeting will say, "What the hell were you saying? Like, what does that mean? What is PDLC? Like, what?" So, I had to create a glossary of terms, and it's fun. I
Yeah.
want people to learn as much as they can about our industry. So this has definitely been the high of highs. And then building this plant that I'm at right now has been, incredible. It's been so much fun.
And it is awesome. And again, I'm with Tim Widner, Director of Glass Fabrication Technical Services at Lippert Components. And, you're right. Lippert's an incredible company. And it's awesome that you're there. And you talked about some of the things that you have your own glossary. And part of that is you're always on top of the latest and the greatest of the trends. And I think, people have searched you out in the past, I would say in the last 10 years to say, hey, I got this new product. What do you think? I got this new machine. What do you think? I mean,
Yeah.
you're definitely in that demand section. So talk to me. What are some of the things that you're seeing, currently or in the last year or two that are like, wow, this is the next big thing, either machinery wise, product wise. What do you think's hot and happening?
Yeah. I think, technology is going to take us by storm. It already is, but some of my guys here, I've been sending them to some glass industry meetings and shows and stuff, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how far behind the industry is."
Yeah.
Forget about manufacturing 4.0. It's not even like, it's not even 1.0 yet. So
We're still using fax
um,
machines. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that is, look, a lot of people are going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Just take a look at glass prices at the first example of this. Unless you can be streamlined in your non-value added activity, costs are just gonna just eat you alive. So, how data gets from the customer to the machine
Yeah.
is kind of where things are going. Forget about the office.
Yeah.
Like, we got to stop talking about the office. It's going from the customer to the machine directly.
Right.
And how that's all tied together, and presenting that or getting that to a customer on time is really going to be tough. I see a lot of happenings on the technology front that are probably years away, but are coming. Like, how does the blockchain affect the glass industry? And I think
Right.
that's going to happen through, we're going to come to a time in our lives where people want to know the entire cradle to grave history of that piece of glass in their house or in their car or in their building. And they want to scan some QR code and the logo, and they want to know what mine the silica sand was mined out of.
Right.
It's going to get to that point
Sure.
at some time. And, I think we need to start thinking 15 years down the road, not 2 or 3.
Yeah, and that's the struggle. I mean, like your guys have noticed, and like you and I obviously can point out, people are really slow to adapt in our industry. Some companies are better than others, but where they get scared off is they get scared off sometimes on the cost of automation. And
Yeah.
my point is that you're going to pay this one way or the other. Why not pay it now and be ahead of the curve, or at least keeping up with where it should be, versus having to deal with it, 5, 10 years from now. And
Yeah,
that's what's crazy to me.
that's correct. And then the other part of it, let's be honest, you got to hire a pain in the ass like me, right?
Right.
You to manage all that, and that comes with its challenges, of course. But it's the biggest thing that I'm kind of at that age now in the glass industry where I'm thinking about, I want to leave this better than when I
Yeah.
found it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's not happening on the employee front, on the team member front. Right. I mean, there's not a long list of guys that are, welcome back, Cotter, pick me,
Yeah.
to be the next glass manager. So, that's not happening. So I'm hoping on the technology side, I work closely with A&W and of course the Heglas and Glastons of the world, and
Yeah.
trying to get these things. And now, Fanuc and some of these other guys to get things tied together and make it a little more seamless. And it's coming fast, Max. It really, really is. And the Elon Musks of the world that talk about, we're going to wake up one day and people aren't going to have jobs. It's coming.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, the AI
Yeah.
factor is real, and
Yeah.
you have to be prepared for it. And I like what you were saying about the customer speaking directly to the machine. And that's something again where we're headed.
Yeah.
And you're in places like yours are already there. So
Yeah.
so that what makes it interesting. And we'll get back into this heavy stuff in a second. I like to break up these interviews with something fun in the middle. And so I got to ask, favorite movie of all time and why?
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, you warned me you were going to ask me one of these questions.
Yeah.
So I think my favorite movie of all time, you know what? My favorite movie of all time is probably a bit obscure. It's called City of God.
Ooh,
It
okay.
is, it's an early 2000s movie, subtitled in Portuguese. Actually, was filmed in Brazil,
Okay.
but it's it's a really, really good movie. I encourage anybody that's looking for a good movie to watch to look up City of God. It's about gangs in the favelas of Rio. So it's a really good movie. It's probably my favorite movie. Yeah.
Okay. I got that one. Again, my guests every month, always surprise me with
Oh,
the fun questions, and that one you got me on. My favorite of all time. I'm simple. It's Rocky.
oh
I
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I just love the Rocky series, with the exception of Rocky 5, which should never be spoken about because it was such a terrible movie. But I like it. So City of God, is that what you said? City of God?
City of God. Yeah, and it's not some you know spiritual biblical movie or anything of that nature. It's a really, really interesting story
Okay.
about a kid who finds his way out of the ghettos of Rio to become a photographer. It's a really good flick.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like you finding your way out of the ghettos of Ohio or Indy, into the glass industry. So yeah,
Yeah, out of the rough streets of Akron.
the rough and tumble streets of Akron. Absolutely. All right. So back to, I love it. Back to our industry. And you were talking about leaving it better. What do we have to do better as an industry overall? What are some of the things we've got to get better? Obviously, you mentioned we got to get up to speed with technology, but what else do we got to do better?
Yeah, look, I think the big thing is we got to make it fun and
Yeah.
interesting for people to get into. I have this conversation. I work closely with Notre Dame here on some engineering things, and they've asked me to kind of speak to what's lacking and what do we need and how do we get there. And, it's all about making it fun and interesting. And I just don't think that we're doing a good enough job of doing that. I love looking at LinkedIn and seeing, like Herring's posts, your guys' posts about, look at this building, look at that building, check this out. I think that stuff's great. I wish more people would pay attention to that and find a love for, hey, why is that way? Or I always teach people about distortion, right? Like I know every building within 20 miles of here where distortion's terrible.
Right.
So I'll tell them, hey, next time you drive by this building, look at the distortion. And then, people come back and they'll say, oh my God, Tim, I never realized that before. And now I can't take my eyes off it. So I think we need to make it fun. And part of that making it fun is, this is the nexus of kind of what we're talking about with technology. Is I really worry. Sometimes I warn Glaston, like, hey, don't make that so automated, because a pilot still needs to fly with visual flight rules and not on their GPS.
Right.
So, like they're in this rush to make, tempering, for example, to be, no operator.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm always going to have an operator. I want a guy or a girl standing there watching and reading the glass and making adjustments on the fly. Like I want them to learn and understand that.
Sure.
So, and that's part of the having fun, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many people come to my plant or the mega plant here that we're building. And some of our jobs are so automated, they're just sitting all day, like basically looking at a screen, and they'll quit and say, it's just too boring. So there's this balancing act of, oh my gosh, I got to teach you more, because I see something in you that, you could be a star for us. But, you got to learn how to do that boring job too. And by the way, that's a really important job. 20 years ago, it took 8 people to do that. And we're doing it with 1 right now. So we're just at that weird point right now where automation hasn't taken over. We still want people to have some, technical knowledge and expertise of how to fly visually. And it's really, really tough. So I struggle with that. How can I, make this more interesting for people? And I do a lot of crazy stuff, Mac. Like I make YouTube videos for my team and walk them through a machine. Hey, this is what it's doing. This sensor, you see that light? That's what's happening here. And try to explain it as much as possible. But ultimately, I think cell phones have spoiled the next generation. They expect everything kind of right then and there.
Sure. Yep.
Having to mine data a little bit to get the answer is a bit difficult. So that's the biggest thing, is we just got to make this fun for people so we can keep the industry alive, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, it's similar to, I had the Aragon brothers on a couple months ago and we talked about culture. And I think like what you're doing with trying to keep it fun, trying to keep people interested, doing YouTube videos, walking them through it. Those are things that are outside the box, and so I think that works to educate and try to make it fun. And because we got to attract people and then keep them, that's
I say all the time, I say it to the CEO of Lippert all the time, my first obligation is to this industry. It's not to the company, because, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm the bridge from the old school to the new school. And look, if I don't, it's okay if you come work for me and learn as much as you can and you quit and go run, some True Light plant somewhere. That's completely fine by me. We have to keep this industry alive. We can't let it go offshore. We can't let it go, a bunch of different ways. And I'm always, first and foremost, I feel like I'm obligated to the industry, right? That I got to make sure that we're here 15 years from now, not just Lippert, but, True Light and Oldcastle and Hartung and all those guys. It's the only way we're going to keep improving is if we're all, kind of keeping this thing alive and going forward.
Absolutely. Dead on. Well said. Well said. I am with Tim Widner, Director of Glass Fabrication and Technical Services at Lippert Components. You can see them online at www.lci1.com. And a couple more questions for you, Tim, because I know you're swamped. 2023, Curious on how you see it lining up, because Lippert isn't, like the normal. You mentioned earlier, it's a beast. It's a $5 billion beast that does a lot of things. How are you guys looking at 2023? Because I know you're probably looking at it differently than somebody like me who's looking at it is, my focus is on, commercial buildings, usually.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you guys seeing in the crystal ball there?
Well, we're truly the canary of the coal mine
Right.
at Lippert, right? Because so much of our business, not all of it, but a big portion of it is tied to discretionary income, right?
Yes.
So RVs, marine, ATV, UTV, this whole side by side. We do a lot of construction equipment, and then we have our whole building products division, which we do look at differently, but. Um, Sometimes I think all this talk about inflation and a distressed economy is us perpetuating the story to become reality someday. But I will tell you the truth: we're worried, not worried, but we're tightly looking at forecasts and incoming order volume and what's happening. Traffic at our customers and dealers and things like that. It's still very strong,
Good.
but it seems the outlook has been a bit shaky here over the last couple of months. But look, in our business, a lot of that's tied to gas prices, right? Because
Yeah.
again, discretionary income, so people are cutting back on a lot of the gas guzzling things that are happening. But the great thing about Lippert is we can change in a blink
Yeah.
of the eye.
Yeah.
So where other people may not have that luxury to do so. So we'll figure out a way one way or the other, but the core of our business, the discretionary income stuff, I think we're cautiously optimistic
Good. Good.
about what the next year, 2 years have to hold.
And you're fortunate, you're diverse. I mean, so like
Yeah,
you said, not only can you switch, but the fact that you're not beholden to one specific market, you've got so many markets. So there are, you have that ability to roll with those punches, which is big.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, last question before I let you go. You know me, I'm a big show guy. I love glass build, love glass tech. I know you go to all of these things. And I'm curious because you, again, this is where you and I are different again. You go with a totally different kind of mindset probably than I do at these shows. So if somebody's going for the first time to Germany in the fall or the first time to glass build in the fall, what advice would you give them on how to take in the show and make it the most effective?
Oh, wow. This is a good question because 20 some years ago when I first started going to shows, I gotta tell you, I was scared to death. I was afraid to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say the wrong thing or embarrass myself. Um, First of all, I think having glass build every year is a mistake. I think that should move to every other year and alternate with glass tech.
Interesting. Okay.
That and again, I love going to the shows because I consider a lot of people in the industry my friends, and that's the
Yeah.
time I get to see them all in one place and go out to dinner and yuck it up and whatnot. But not enough changes from year to year to make that. I'm looking at it from our supplier standpoint. It's a lot of work for them to put these shows on,
It is.
and
It is.
and I make sure. Listen, one thing I learned, I always thank them.
Yeah.
Always,
Yes.
Glaston will put on this huge thing, and man, I always tell them, like, guys, geez, like you didn't have to do all this. Like, first of all, thank you, and I
Yeah.
know it's expensive, So, and then they get into this thing where they're competing with each other. He's got the bigger, nicer, the cooler booth.
Especially at Glass
So
Tech. At Glass Tech, it's
yes,
insane. Yeah.
yes. So I think that's first. But if I were new coming into it, I think we don't do a good enough job as an industry kind of welcoming newcomers in.
Okay.
And it's an interesting question. I would like to see, maybe NGA does something where they hey, you want to mentor somebody that's first time at their show, and I would love to have some 20-year-old someone walking around with me at the show. They'd probably have a fit.
Oh, it'd be
But
awesome.
I think it's more of just stop and talk, and don't be afraid to say the
Right.
wrong thing. And even more importantly, don't believe everyone's nonsense, right? I think that you'll be told a lot about the way you should do things, and that's just from one person's perspective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Forvet may have a different way of doing something than CMS or Intermac or, Bavaloni or whoever. And just seek out as much opinions as you can and filter through it.
Yeah.
For the most part, everybody's going to be nice, right? They're especially on those first and last days of the show, and especially when it's in Vegas, when there's a lot of people out gambling and not at the show.
Right.
Just go to a booth if you see something you like and just start asking questions.
I like
Just
it.
start
Yep.
asking questions.
And
That's what I would do.
I like that. I like that advice. I like the don't believe the nonsense advice. And I do think that, for all of our foibles, we are a nice industry. I mean,
Yeah.
you very
Yeah.
rarely run into, excuse my language, an asshole. I mean, they
Yeah.
exist, but in the show, people are usually pretty cool. They want to, engage and want to talk. And I think you're right. I mean, I think that it's important that people feel comfortable to engage.
Yeah, it can be intimidating, right? And it's funny. I'll give you a little side story. I've taken new people to the shows. Some people listening to this probably know these stories. I've taken newcomers to the shows before, and I always tell them, hey, the first night, it's custom that all first time show, like, you got to get dressed up, like it's black tie. I had a guy show up in a tux one time. So, I'm telling this guy, everybody that I take to the show, and now it's become this running joke to where, you'll see me at a show with somebody and they'll be completely, suit and tie. And, here I am in a golf shirt and Oakley golf pants and walking around. They're like, you didn't get the memo, you're supposed to dress up the first night of the show. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? That's not a thing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's like the glass stretcher in the warehouse. That's
Go to the basement and find the glass stretcher.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I've never heard that. That's classic. I got to keep my eye open for these two shows this year to see who you got dressed up. So,
but I think that's the thing is just don't be afraid to say the wrong thing or embarrass yourself. Or if you don't know the answer, just say, hell, I don't know how that works. I'm looking for you to tell me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think most people want to share their knowledge or kind of how they see how something should be made. They'll share it with you.
Yeah, we do have that, and I appreciate that insight. That's good stuff. No, I appreciate your time today. I could go on and on with you, and especially, talking about some of the diving deep into those 2008, 2009. But I think you covered that nicely, in your talk there. And then I'm thrilled that you are where you are. I think that you do our industry a lot of good. Being at Lippert and helping a company of that size do things, in the way that you do it. So kudos to you and kudos to Lippert for that. That's a ingenious sort of connection for both of you.
Yeah, it's worked out great. And, I'm not just waving the Lippert flag because, I work here but it's a great place to work. I mean, it's been awesome. And our CEO is awesome. He's basically gives me a lot of rope to hang myself if I do. And, I always say same thing. I think he appreciates what I said is, I got to make sure this industry stays alive going forward so that, when we're retired, Lippert still has this part of the, this business or this segment to kind of keep a stranglehold on. And that's what's most important. I'm at that stage where I'm kind of thinking about, all right, what do I really want my legacy in this industry to be? And I would like nothing more than for people to say it's better off after Tim was there. That's it.
Well, I think that goes without saying. You've done so much. And again, the reason people search you out is because of that experience and that skill set that you bring. And so that's evident. So just keep rolling with it, my friend. Keep rolling with it. And really fortunate to be with Tim Widner of Lippert Components this month. Thank you so much for doing the podcast. I really appreciate picking your brain. I look forward to seeing you at the shows in Dusseldorf and Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely, Max. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Okay. Now up, I'm thrilled to have Dan Shields, president of the Fabricated Products Group. You can find them online at fabricatedproductsgroup.com. Dan's a guy I've been chasing for a long, long time to have on this podcast, and a good guy. And I'm really excited to hear because his story is pretty interesting. The way the company got going, timing, what they do, how they do it. And so, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Max, I'm excited to be here. Humbled that you reached out to me, and looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've always, you're one of these guys I've gotten to kind of know, but not really, and so I'm excited to kind of get to know you a little bit better. And just really to start, Fabricated Products Group is in Chicago. You're in Chicago, or at least the Chicagoland area. Are you born and bred Chicago, or did you come from somewhere else? Usually most people I talk to who are in Chicago have been there their entire lives.
I am born and bred Chicagoan. We actually, when you're from Chicago,
yeah,
you have to be in the city limits to be able to say that you're born and bred from Chicago.
Okay.
My wife is from the suburbs, and I won't allow her to say that. But I am, in fact, a born bred Chicagoan. I was born in the city limits, and I lived there up until about 16, and then I moved out to the suburbs. So.
Gotcha. So what got you going into this crazy business that we're both in? Talk about your past. I mean, how did you get from being born and bred in Chicago and work your way into the glass glazing and fabricated products world that we're in?
Max, that is a funny question, because I ask it a lot. A lot of the events that we go to, where I see you running around like a crazy man all day.
Yeah.
I ask people, because I don't know anybody that has said, I wanted to be in glass and glazing my whole life. We kind of some of us had family members that started a company, and we worked for them, and some of us just kind of tripped, fell, and woke up here one day. I'm in the latter group. Mid 90s, I started, when I transferred. So I said that I went to the suburbs when I was 16.
Okay.
I transferred high schools, and when I transferred into high school, they teamed you up with somebody that was your transfer buddy.
Okay.
That way you had a friend in the new school and someone to talk to. My transfer buddy happened to be the grandson of a trainer.
Oh, no way. Okay.
And he, actually I was 15 because I was on a worker's permit, but we got to become friends, and his family's business needed help, summer help. Started breaking down crates and sweeping floors and pounding vinyl, mid 90s. And
for those of you listening who don't know, the trainers were Chicago's glass royalty. It was huge. So you got connected into the trainer family. That's how you got in. Okay, keep going. That's
getting connected to a large glazing contractor that went after commercial work, right? So there's a ton of middle of the road, smaller type work, but we were like right out of the gate. I was being exposed to large unitized curtain wall type projects. Went away to school, came back, needed extra money, said, hey, I'll sweep floors again. And went to school for a bunch of different things, and that's a whole nother podcast. But the short story is I changed my major about 6 times.
Wow.
Master, jack of all trades, master of none type thing. And got back into trainer, had some engineering classes, was able to read drawings right away, got into the production side of things. And then from there, it was just kind of, it got stickier and stickier. And I tried to get out many times. I just couldn't do it. And I'm still here 26 years later. So.
Yeah. Once you get in this, it's the Godfather thing. Once you get in, you don't get out. And that's, that's how I've always felt. Yes.
Right. Every once in a while you see one guy that did it and you're like, oh my God, you got out. But no, I love this industry. I've come to just meet so many great people, and just so many different projects that we've done over the time that just really makes it entertaining and fun to come work. We've all had some tough industry, tough market, right? We're getting ready for another one. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute, but so that roller coaster of what we've gone through, and it makes it that much more special when you have something like what we're doing here at Fabricator Products Group. And,
yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about that. And I definitely have to clarify the trainers are still royalty in a lot of places. They're still great people. So that last thing I need is Beth or some of the others that I'm friends with saying, what do you, we don't exist anymore or what? You know, so I got to clean that up.
Company versus the trainer, like they're still titans in our industry.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I'm still friends with, we actually just had the Glazers golf outing here
right.
A couple of weeks ago. And it was a Train Glass reunion. It was great seeing everybody there and what they're doing now and catching up. And
love it.
It's always fun to connect with everybody.
I love it.
Rounding out how I got to where I'm at now. So that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned how to do glass and glazing. I worked for their sister company called Duralco. And I was at Duralco for about 10 years, working with another industry titan, Tom O'Malley.
Yep.
And became really good friends with Tom. At least I think he's my friend. I'm not sure if he was.
Me too. I go through that with Tom too. I think I'm his friend, but I'm not sure because he's got so many friends.
And we know he's watching this, so hi, Tom.
Yes, hi, Tom.
But so I learned from the best, right? And then from there, I got into a decade doing metal, Miss Metal sunshades, grills, architectural panels, stuff like that. Then I got back into the glazing side, so I went to Alliance Glazing.
Gotcha.
I was working with Brian Filipiak for
another good one.
Another titan. And then got an opportunity to go to St. Louis and start up a glazing contractor with IWR North America.
Gotcha.
And that group was running a side project called Fabricator Products. It was a company that they've had since 1967.
Right.
Was able to resurrect it and bring it outside of the wings of that and make it a standalone company. So it was because of that opportunity that I got this. We're part of a larger group called MHS Legacy.
Okay.
MHS Legacy has got their roots go back to 1895.
Nice.
They've always, they've always had different companies, scaffolding companies, insulation companies, roofing companies, and then they had this Miss Metal company that kind of mothballed, and we took it out from there. So 10 years metal, 10 years glass, 5 years of a mixed bag, and then I'm taking all of that and putting it to practice now. So.
And so you got to get this really going all into practice. I remember you telling me this. We were together. It was last year in Atlanta that you started. This is really went full bore in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And I looked at you and I'm like, you're still alive. I mean, how the heck did you do? I mean, obviously, everything now you look back, it's just insanity. But in the moment, you had to be, kind of sweating a little bit like, oh my gosh, we're getting this thing going full bore. And why is everybody shutting down? And what is this happening? And then all of a sudden, the world shuts down on March 13th, basically, just as you're getting going. I give congrats for battling through and still sitting here today and looking great and doing great. And, and second, how'd you do it? How'd you get through it? The resilience, kudos to you and your folks.
Thanks. Yeah, it was 8 months before the 2 week shutdown.
The 2 weeks, exactly.
Yeah, 8 months before is when we put the business plan together. So It really was right before it. First 6 months, you're finding a place, hiring a team, getting the equipment, website, getting all your sales, swag stuff, and your literature, and all that pulled together. It takes about 4 to 6 months to do all of that.
Right.
We were about to hit the road, doing the tour, the FPG tour, the national tour here. We were going to hit all the cities and states that we were targeting, and nobody was in the office. So it was. Actually, if you go to my website now, I probably still have our online store. We were making sneeze guards.
Okay, got it.
We did a couple schools here where we were fitting all of the conference rooms and their the teachers' lounges and stuff with these sneeze guards. So we kind of like switched gears. Being a custom fabricator,
had to right.
We have the capabilities, and it was an immediate need. We donated a lot to the school, some of the schools here that didn't have the budget for it. Even though we can argue whether or not they were useful.
Right.
But in any case, we did that, and it was because of being in the industry as long as I was at the start. and having really strong relationships, and being able to just pick up the phone and saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you have work, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. And you know that we have the ability to do it, the capabilities. We're here in Frankfurt. Do have some friends that threw some work at us to keep us going.
Good.
Also being tied to a very good company, an MHS Legacy as our parent company, that allowed us to have the capital to do what we wanted to do and just keep plugging forward. So now that we're 3 years removed from that, we're not 3 years behind. Right? We just kept progressing. We kept building the team. We kept on making those calls. Now we're finally doing that tour that we've been waiting so long to do.
Good.
We have 6 lunch and learns set up for the next 6 weeks. I mean, it's really starting to take off on us as far as getting out there and let people know we're here, and what we do. So we're very blessed that we had the ability to survive through that and still make the strides that we wanted to make to get to year 3 of where we kind of planned on. We're a little bit behind, there's holes in the calendar, but we are in a really good spot to really see, the next 5-10 years.
No, kudos to you and your folks. I'm with Dan Shields, president of Fabricated Products Group. Find them online, fabricatedproductsgroup.com, all one word there. And again, surviving that is huge. And speaking of your website, you mentioned the website. The one thing I really liked, one thing my brother drilled into my head, early on in my career, was attention to detail. Attention to detail. He also drilled in sense of urgency too. That was one of his other ones, sense of urgency. But when I saw attention to detail on your site, I'm like, I knew there's a reason I like Dan so much. I mean, he gets it. Is it me, or it's amazing why do we have to repeat this? It should come as an obvious that we should all have attention to detail, but it's a crucial thing. And I like the way that you're pushing it. And I think it's something people miss, but kudos again to you guys for picking it up, because especially for what you do, if you're off a millimeter, anything, nothing works.
Yeah. Compounds, right? So being born out of a building enclosure contractor, and me personally being born out of the industry, we look at projects different than like a machine shop would.
Right.
And we're looking at adjacent trades. We're looking at how are you going to install this? Not just here it is, it shows up the website. There's things that we do where because we know the installation difficulties and shaking product out, we actually send out sequence plans and how the product's graded and what to expect, and it's all those little details in the communication with the client that really makes it a good job or a great job.
Yeah.
And we're always striving for that great job. We want the client to leave and immediately think of what's the next job that I can throw at them, because it was a good experience. So going into it fresh like we were with we came off some really large projects collectively as a team from different industries. So we brought all that in and it's like, what stands out? Like what were the sticking points and what were the wins on the jobs that we were at? And there was 2 things. And one was the detail. The attention to detail was either lacking or it was a great job because there was so much attention to detail. And the other one was we said we have breakneck turnaround. It's making sure you have the product when you need it. In all of it. Not you can get the product out there and not have the hardware and you're staring.
Yeah.
The other thing too, with the attention to detail, being born in this industry, we look at kind of like we're a layer of oversight for our clients, because we understand the difference between a wind load and a dead load clip, and not just their angles with slots or holes in it. And we had a project when we first started that's an example of that, where we received what were all dead load clips, but they were just angles, they were just brackets. And if we were a machine shop, we would just made it what they ordered and we would just shipped it out and then invoiced.
Right.
And we picked up the phone and said, just curious, where are you buying the wind load clips from? And it was an oversight. They forgot to send that part of it.
Wow.
So, and this, if you're installing out there, if you're installing that product and you don't realize you don't have those clips until it arrives, and then you have to place the order and wait for it. You could have field out there for weeks on end, not able to install anything.
Yeah.
So now we ask the question because we want to work, but at the same time, we understand what the needs are. I'm just curious, like, hey, how can we get rid of this stuff? And
that is but that is the sort of mentality that again sets you apart. And that's the mentality I kind of, hammer either in my speeches or in my blogs of, has a supplier, no matter where you're at in the food chain, taking that extra step, and especially now with the supply chain being a mess, if you're not making that extra effort and you're not taking that extra step, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing your customer a disservice. I mean, you really should be going above and beyond. That's a great story. That's a great catch too.
And knowing what your client is up against is you might be able to help out in other areas too.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that when I look at a set of drawings, I know the systems they're using, right? And if we're going to give them an idea of how to approach troubleshooting, things like that, I think we have a little bit more of a head start, because I'm not going to offer a recommendation if I know it's not going to work.
Sure.
And knowing the systems, like if it's a cassette system, it's SSG, and how our brackets are going to integrate with that system versus just a capture curve wall. Like knowing the systems, I think gets us a little bit of a head start on the design effort. So.
No, that's a good call. That's a good call. And so those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to put up the pictures that Dan's going to provide me. You want to talk about a project or two, I assume, because I gave you a heads up. Tell me about these projects I'm going to show and why they're special.
Yeah. So there's a couple of projects. It's hard to show everything that we're capable of doing in one job.
Right.
So we have Missouri Botanical is a job where we did a trellis canopy up the front of the building. It was a huge effort with integrating with the lighting. You'll see in these photos here that there's integrated lighting into our system, so we had to work with the electricians on the building, and then we fabricated our stuff before the steel was built. So everything on this job here was guaranteed sizes versus field measurement. And,
that's some pressure.
Yeah, the tubes on here are 30 millimeter by 80 millimeter.
Wow.
Let's tell you that the architect was working with a lot of product that was overseas and developed it based on the metric system. And it was very important that it was 80 millimeters and not 82, because the sight line had to run with the other elements that are around the building. So
interesting.
Very, very proud of that project. Gave us enough of a reputation where they gave us phase 2. We just completed phase 2.
Congrats.
So I'll be getting, and phase 2 is bigger than phase 1. We love that, right?
That's nice. Yeah.
Because you're only better at phase 2 than phase 1.
Yes.
You learned everything in phase 1. The next project is Sarah Bush Lincoln. Just an example of a horizontal sunshade system. Sunshades are probably our bread and butter. I mean, that's what we. If I'm going to tell anybody what we are, if they don't understand what a custom metal shop is, we make sunshades. It's the first thing that we say, because it's an element that goes in the glass and glazing that I feel that we can help out with the most. It was a nice clean project, Z-blade infill. So that's an example of sunshade. We also have expanded metal mesh, which is starting to become one of the largest products for us right now, and it is in high demand. We actually have 2 projects that collectively are almost 80,000 square feet of product for us. So the one that you're looking at right here is called North Rim. It's in San Antonio. This one's just about 30,000 square feet. We're wrapping the entire parking garage with it. These are progress photos. We're shipping the 10th truckload of material down to San Antonio.
Nice.
The important thing to note about this one is that they're 10 foot by 10 foot prefabricated panelized units. So the client is installing 100 square feet at a time.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Now,
makes it faster. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of challenges to it. I wouldn't recommend it on every job. The right job, we can do it. The reason why is because the owner was driving by another job our sister company did down in Deep Ellum, and saw this product, and it was in portrait, but they wanted it in landscape.
Okay.
And because of changing it orientation and having slab to slab still, high enough to get cars through it, the parking garage, there was a seam in the middle of the opening, and that creates a engineering obstacle that we had to get past. And the way that we achieved that was building a unit that the structure was vertical, but the mesh was horizontal.
Okay. Nice.
It was a unique approach, but there's a lot of miles between here and San Antonio, and in an oversized unit, they're very expensive moves.
Yeah.
But we were able to max out our trucks and actually go from 14 trucks down to 10. So it was a successful job all around. We're finishing up. It's going in. It's a format that our guys. So we're very proud of that project, and we're walking into another one right here locally with the Chicago Park District. So we'll see more expanding this year.
Wonderful. I love it. Good stuff. So thank you for sharing it. And and you're shipping all over the place, obviously, which makes it a little bit of an adventure, but it's good. It's a good adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have work, we'll travel.
Yeah. All right. So gotta mix it up, have a fun question in here. And so initially I had one question in mind, but then you gave me some insight into your life. I did not realize that you are a bowler, a big time bowler too. So
I wouldn't say big time, but
dude, you told me you've rolled at least one 300 game. That means you're a big time bowler. How many 300s have you rolled?
I have eight
300 games. So I have to ask you, when you're to that last strike, I mean, any nerves like on the first one versus the eighth one? I mean, what was going through your stomach when you're 12 strikes to get the 300 or
exactly. So the first one, the eighth one feel exactly the same. Doesn't matter.
Really? You're standing up there. You've got 11 in a row. You're standing up there and you feel the exact same way. I'm just
you have about 100 to 150 bowlers all stopping, waiting for you to throw that last one. Believe it or not, even with 8 on my team, I'm probably towards the last of the crew.
Wow.
I mean, they all have at least a dozen.
Wow. Now, is it like golf when you get a hole in one? Do you have to buy the entire bar drinks when you throw?
No, actually, I think I get drinks bought for me when I throw the 300.
Nice. Okay. Good.
No, it's not like that. It's one of those things. It's actually it's closer to like throwing a no hitter, because as you progress, it gets harder and harder and harder to concentrate.
Yeah.
Like a hole in one is a great
one
shot.
And done. Right.
It's a great approach, and the nerves don't get built up over time.
True.
It's more in line with like throwing a no hitter. But the thing that I was joking around about is just all the golfing that we do in the sales side.
In this industry, yeah.
We were just talking about the Glacier golf hunting and going out with clients golfing. You think I would be a great golfer. I'm really good at finding the beer cart girl, but as far as golfing goes, I'm not the first one to get picked for hey, we need to round out this foursome. Yeah. I'm a good fill-in because I'll say yes, I'll go. But as soon as they start the Glazers bowling outing, I'll be one of the few that get picked first.
we know who the ringer is, and so I have to ask, all-time favorite bowler. I mean, for me growing up, we watched every Saturday, at our house, Earl Anthony, Mark Roth, Marshall Holman. I'm older than you, so those are old guys. You're probably like, who the hell are those folks?
Yeah. Pete Weber would be the guy.
Pete Weber. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you flamboyant like Pete Weber? Do you come out with the sunglasses and everything? Are you flamboyant?
I just as a jokester, I will do it, but it's just what he brought to the sport as far as just more of an entertainment aspect to it. Bowling's fun. A lot of people. The thing that sucks about this whole thing about bowling competitively is I have a hard time enjoying bowling with the family. Because I'm out there with all my gear trying to find the shot while the kids are just
tossing,
rolling and firing. They're just having it stays on the lane. So it does take away from it. But yeah, I thought that was something that I can share with you.
I love it. I love it. And my only comparison to that is I travel so much that my wife calls me a travel snob. and I can't travel with my family. My daughter's getting good, but the rest of them, I'm like, let's go. Come on.
Yep,
We got to know what you're doing here. So I know what you're saying on that.
Yeah, I'll
Well,
get to the gate and I have to look back and see where my family is. I left them in the dust.
I love it. I love it. Well, I love the bowling thing, and now I know. Now I know who to go to. The go-to bowling superstar in our industry. So, all right. So back to the heavy duty stuff. Supply chain. How are you holding up? Because again, what's interesting about Fabricated Products Group, and again, I'm with Dan Shields, president of Fabricated Products Group. How are you guys holding up? Because you're not the typical person I normally talk to on this podcast. You're pulling probably from a lot of different sort of scenarios, different sort of sources. How's the supply chain doing in your world?
Yeah, so we deal with ferrous and non-ferrous here. So aluminum, steel, stainless. So we do have a lot of vendors that we work with. I would say that because of the supply chain issues that we've dealt with up to the amount of vendors that we have tripled. So we had to get very creative on who we call and how many. Like you're just building this huge network.
Yeah.
Of players that can help you out in that time. So we gravitate towards those that we've worked with.
Sure.
There's extruders that I've worked with for 20 something years that I feel comfortable with, but when their lead times go from 6 weeks to a year and a half, it makes it really difficult, especially on jobs that you currently have in the pipeline. So on that, we had a project where we had to cut a die. We wound up calling 52 extruders in 8 different countries.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Just on the aluminum side. And now I get calls at 3 o'clock in the morning from China. Hey, do you want aluminum? I can't unring that bell.
No.
But you have to get creative. We'll move mountains to get jobs completed on time.
That's good.
We understand schedule. We're one of the last ones on the building. They can't close it up until it's done. So what we're trying to do now to combat it is we try to get on it as early as we can. That makes sense. But if we can get released, have part of the design assist process, if we can understand what's sacred and sacrificial on the design, we say, okay, this has to be a 30 millimeter by 80 millimeter tube. That's not going to change. I'll go ahead and order the material way ahead of when I can.
Right.
There's a risk there. We try to get the client to understand what that is and share in on it. But getting it early is huge. Communication levels got to be at 1,000. You have to talk throughout this whole thing. Most of our clients and the GCs that they're working with understand, for the most part, the trials and tribulations of the supply chain and logistic component to it. Being able to communicate live information as it happens allows everybody to react appropriately.
Yeah.
If you wait, it's due in 10 weeks. You wait till week 8 to tell them it's not coming in on time. But if on week 1 that it's going to be a challenge, and I'm going to keep you posted as we go through this, you work on it together. You just have a better situation for everybody.
Tremendous takeaways, and especially it was really hard for people to open up their supply base when this all started to happen, because you had your favorite A and B suppliers, and we are a loyal industry. The one thing that newbies coming into this industry that don't understand is that everybody, it's a relationship based industry, and you really you build these relationships and they come through, and you don't want to hurt somebody that you're friends with. But when that friend, like you said, is a year and a half, you have to, and they'll understand. They don't want to be a year and a half either, but it is funny. I remember those, the approach that you had to take was so hard for a lot of people to do, of you have to go find that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th supplier just because you need to protect yourself.
Yeah. And even like on the expanded mesh, and we sold a lot of it. We're getting involved with our vendors to find out what they're up against. And on that one, the Chicago Park District that we're gearing up for is a champagne anodized finish, which means that the raw material that I'm using has to be 5,000 series, not 3,000.
Right.
And the magnesium shortage in the industry is impacting the 5,000 series aluminum. So it was very difficult to find the material, and that's what my vendor was up against. we got involved and we were able to source the coils for them because we had a bigger Rolodex of people that we worked with in the industry. And it was our friends through Line Tech knows this guy that knows this guy. You know, we've just kept following that path, and we were able to source the coils, get it to our vendor. They processed it, brought it, and we're actually about 10 weeks ahead of schedule on that job.
Super.
Could we have waited for them to find it? Maybe. But I think that because we're so sensitive to it now, that we're not willing to take that risk. We're gonna try to jump on and get as early as we can. I'd rather have the problem trying to find a place to put the stuff than trying to figure out where it's at.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I love it. A couple more questions before I let you go. I know you're a swamp man. I appreciate you taking the time. One thing I've always admired about you and where I got to meet you is you come to the industry events. And I really appreciate that. That is it's a big thing for me, supporting the industry, getting there, talk about why why it's important for you to get to things like Glass Build and, BEC and the forums that I've gotten to visit with you over in the past. What is it that drives you to get to these very important events?
Well, I mean, it all started, I was forced to go.
No way. Okay.
Hi, Tom. And, you start to develop those relationships, those connections, and then it becomes where you have to reconnect and keep up with innovations and keep up with just getting a pulse on the industry and where people are headed, so that way you can make the appropriate changes and react. So you're more proactive and preemptive than reactive. And I think those events allow you a little bit of a window into, they might have figured something on the West Coast a little bit earlier than that we are in the Midwest, and we might be able to pick up some of the best practices out there in order to incorporate it here. Because at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, it's the industry that we're supporting, not just our own companies, and we have to help each other out when it comes to this. If you understand that, like right now we're dealing with the logistics component, right? Gas is double what it was a year ago, whatever it is. How do we communicate that ahead of time? And I share that information, how we're approaching it.
Yeah.
It's because maybe it helps somebody think a little bit sooner. I'm trying to get my clients to think through that and protect both of us.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of benefit to sharing some of those best practices, understanding that we're all dealing with some of these issues together, and if we want to survive and get through that, we kind of have to come together. So it's that, this thing, I'm having fun too. Like, we're constantly in this grind every day, Monday through Sunday, right? It never stops. You're constantly, there's always somebody that needs something. There's always schedules. There's always complications in the job site or the design. And sometimes you have to stop and realize, man, we're living here too. Like, we have to get together and hang out. And who better to hang out with than people that understand your day?
Yeah.
And that's why I love going out there and hearing, just seeing old friends and stuff. And
it's worth it.
I think it's good to connect.
Awesome. Well, obviously, I look forward to seeing you in a few months in Vegas, and that'll be a good one. And so to wrap up, 2022 and 2023. Obviously, this year you said you found your stride, or it wasn't like you found it. You continued on your stride. How's it going this year, and what's next year looking like for you guys?
Yeah, so 22 is going to be a solid year for us for sure. Finishing up. Like I said, we're finishing up North Rim down in San Antonio, gearing up for Chicago Park District here. So 2 really nice anchor projects for us. 23, starting off, we got some backlog going into the first quarter, which you always want.
Yeah.
Our slow season is about October through March, right? Because we're sunshades on the outside of buildings. A lot of my clients, we're in the Midwest, so we have weather to deal with. Wearing a vest and a long sleeve shirt in August because it's 60 degrees.
Yep, that's the Midwest.
So we get colder fast than the rest of the industry. But 23, I think that in the pipeline, what we're looking at, it has a ton of potential, a lot of huge potential. Just concerned about the industry reacting or overreacting and seeing if those projects actually shake out. If they do, I'll be busy through 24.
Nice.
If they don't, we'll be hungry for work.
Yeah, and you'll hustle. You'll diversify your hustle. You've done it before, and a lot of it is out of our control with the way our world is. I mean, we have to just roll with the punches that are thrown at us. And
I think reacting to that, I think we're set up for it. We have other lines that we haven't discussed here. We deal with like a calcium silicate material that's not in our industry. I have a contract with the NFL and PGA and NCAA doing other product for them. So, I think being diverse enough to survive is very important. But my passion is in the building and closure stuff, and I'd love to see that stuff come through because
I love it.
That's our wheelhouse for sure.
Love it. Well, the sky continues to be the limit, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time. Dan Shields, president of Fabricator Products Group. Find them online at fabricatorproductsgroup.com. Thank you again for taking the time to be on the podcast. I appreciate it.
I appreciate being here. I appreciate you, Max, and everything that you do for the industry too. Thanks for doing it.
Awesome. See you soon. Thank you. Okay. That'll wrap things up for this month. This little mini podcast. Like I said, I'm doing something a little bit differently going forward with some more podcasts, a little bit different of a frequency. So thanks for checking it out. As always, ending with some TV thoughts. Another new Lakers miniseries is coming out now on Hulu. Will Joe Carlos, the ultimate Laker fan who has not yet watched, I think, the first Lakers miniseries, will he be checking this one out? I will. I'm a sports fan. And speaking of that, I did watch the Derek Jeter miniseries. If you're a Yankee fan, you'll love it. If you're a sports fan, you'll like it. There's some episodes there that go a little sideways, but as a sports fan, I really enjoyed it and really had no idea how great Derek Jeter was as a ball player. So that was a heck of a learning experience. So that's all we've got for today. Once again, thank you to Glass Build America for sponsoring this podcast. You can sign up today at glassbuild.com. Use the code MAXPOD, MAXPOD, and get free registration to the show floor, a packed show floor. Join us October 18th through the 20th in Las Vegas. Learn more at glassbuild.com. And until next month, we'll see you later.
Oh, the music is stopped.